All right. Anybody want to change seats? Just about time left. Anybody needs to step out for anything? Now would be a good time to do it. Latecomers will not be seated until just before the offering is taken.
40 seconds, stand by.
I'm standing by. Oh, I can stand by with the best of them. Now, if you take off your glasses, it means that other people cannot see you. It's an old psychological trick they use in the television business. I believe in it. Nonetheless, I do want to make sure they're clean, because my parents will be watching.
From Minnesota Public Radio.
Well, look who's coming through that door. I think we met somewhere before. Hello, love. Oh. Hello, love. Well, where in the world you been so long? I missed you so since you've been gone. Hello, love. Oh, hello, everybody, and welcome to a Prairie Home Companion. Coming to you live from the World Theater in downtown St. Paul and presented every Saturday night at this time by Minnesota Public Radio and by this public radio station. With Mr. Chet Atkins and his walking, talking guitar, Mr. Johnny Gimble and his fiddle, Peter Sisko, Miss Jean Redpath with us, Mr. Butch Thompson at the piano, all the band, and Mr. Fred Newman as well, brought to you by your friends in Lake Wobegon, Minnesota. I've heard it said time and again, you always go back where you've been. I never really believed it was true. Here we are, you are too. It's wonderful now, you're back with me. Things are like they used to be. Remember love, oh, remember love. Oh, you're back with me, my world's complete. Don't mind me now if I repeat. Hello love, oh, hello love. Hello love, I'm starting to get the chorus. Hello love. Oh. Thank and hello to you on a Saturday night. Welcome to another live broadcast from this beautiful new theater here in St. Paul. This first portion of our show brought to you by Powder Milk Biscuits in the big blue box. Heavens, they're tasty and expeditious. Also brought to you, speaking of biscuits, by Mercury, the toaster with the torch attachment. It delivers toast fast, so don't sit and wait for an old toaster. Get a Mercury and enjoy a hot toast right away. Brought to you, too, by Grunwald Menthol Light, the low-cal beer with clean menthol taste. So if you're troubled by beer breath, reach for a big green bottle of Grunwald Menthol Light. Doesn't it sound and look good? By Scotty, too, the cough syrup for dogs. Remember, when your dog develops a nagging cough that keeps you awake nights, a capful of Scotty suppresses the cough and helps your dog get back to sleep. And it also cures canine hiccups. Safe but effective, it's Scotty. Brought to you by Pentagon Surplus Hardware, too. If you use a wood saw more than once in a while and you'd like to triple your wood saw efficiency, why not try a U.S. Air Force laser saw with onboard computer right-in-the-hand grip? Yes, developed over a 10-year period, the laser hand saw cost the Air Force more than $35,000 apiece. But yours now from Pentagon Surplus for $13.95. 2 for $6. And brought to you by Elbow Gel, the plastic explosive for use in the home. Hard to open doors or windows, jars with lids that just won't come loose. A little Elbow Gel does the trick time after time after time. we need more sponsors on our show today because this is expensive. We got a new theater and families to support and all the rest of it. So don't hold it against us. Mr. Johnny Gamble and his mandolin, it's good to see you, up from Texas. Mr. Chet Atkins and his guitar. Butch Thompson going to kick off this first tune. Butch wrote this called Sleeper. That was a Butch Thompson tune called Sleeper, brought to you by Powder Milk Biscuits and the Big Blue Box. Powder Milk Biscuits, made from the whole wheat raised by Norwegian bachelor farmers. So you know it's not only good for you, it's also pure mostly. Whole wheat that gives shy persons the strength to get up and do what needs to be done. Tonight's broadcast is the grand opening of our theater here, the World Theater in downtown St. Paul. It is our housewarming, our celebration, now that the theater has been renovated after 2 years of very hard work by some wonderful friends of ours in this community. It's not all paid for yet, but it's elegant, and especially with you in it, and we're so happy to be here. And I'm so proud to live in a city and a state where this is possible, to do a piece of work as elegant as this. Our show has been here since 1978, when our producer walked by down the street and noticed that the windows were boarded up, and we found out that the theater was owned by a man who was supposed to be a businessman, but who had a soft spot for this magnificent theater and loved it and was just looking for an excuse not to tear it down. So he let us come in for $50 a week rent. We stayed here for 6 years. Somewhere in there we bought it. I forget when we were so crazy to do that. We couldn't afford to really fix it up. We were just squatters here. So we squatted And we did the show until about 2 years ago. It started to fall apart. And then we had to look for help. Nobody likes to ask for help. But you find out about other people when you do. And what we found out is that there are so many people in this city who have wonderful imaginations, including some people who wear brown suits and wingtip shoes, and who we led in down these aisles when this place was a pit. And they stood right down here when there was wreckage around here and there was plaster fallen on the floor, and these walls, these boxes weren't there. These walls were painted a kind of a dismal blue that they use in the county jail, I think. And this place reeked of 50 years of rancid butter and orange pop and jujubes mashed into the concrete. It was an old dump. And yet, these people could stand here and imagine it, actually imagine it as it could be, and could sense the splendor and the grandeur of this place. I'm so proud that we found them, and so happy that they helped us. We never could have done it without them, and I want to thank them. It's a great talent, this imagination that every city needs, the ability to see things as they can be. And it all happened right here in St. Paul, where a little bit of our past was recovered and made new, and this theater now begins a second career right here in our graceful old city on the banks of the Mississippi, the city of intensely private people leading private lives who ever so often do amazing things. So amazing that we amaze and alarm ourselves. Powder milk biscuits. Get me some little biscuit fiddle there, Pete. Take us off. 1, 2, 3. Well, has your family tried them powder milk? Has your family tried them powder milk? Well, if your family's tried them, you know you're satisfied them. They're the real hot iron powder milk. Oh. Family's tried them, oh, you know you satisfied them. They're the real hot item powder milk. Powder milk biscuits, get them in the big blue box. Heavens, they're tasty and expeditious. Our friend Gene Redpath is with us from Edinburgh, Scotland. It's so good to have him. This is a wonderful old gospel tune. Johnny and Chet and I were talking about how we wanted to sing this and have Gene lead us on it. It really is true song.
suffers pain, your health you can't regain. You know your soul is sinking in despair. Jesus knows the pain you feel. He can save and he can heal. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there.
Leave it there, oh leave it there.
Oh, leave it there.
Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you will trust him and never doubt, he will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there.
Now if your enemy assails and your heart begins to fail, just remember God in heaven answers prayer. He will make a way for you. He will guide you safely through. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there.
Leave it there, oh leave it there.
Oh, leave it there.
Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you will trust him and never doubt, he will surely bring you out.
Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there.
Days are gone and old age is stealing on, and your body sinks beneath the weight of care. Jesus will never leave you there. He'll go with you to the end. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, oh leave it there.
Oh, leave it there.
Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you will trust him and never doubt, he will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Now if your lover leaves you here, grief and sorrow you must bear, and you think that all the friends you have are gone, well, whenever you feel alone, Jesus will take you in his arms. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, oh leave it there.
Oh, leave it there.
Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you will trust him and never doubt, he will surely bring you out. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Leave it there, oh leave it there.
Oh, leave it there.
Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. If you will trust him and never doubt, he'll surely bring you out.
Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there. Take your burden to the Lord and leave it there.
Thank you, Jenny Prudence Johnson, helping us out on that. What a wonderful band. Mr. Bruce Kalin on the bass and Gary Grogger on the drums and Butch at the piano. It's such a pleasure always to have our good friend from Nashville, Tennessee come up and join us for the show. man who's inspired a lot of people to pick up that instrument or one quite similar to it and try their hand at it. But he has a talent with it that's all his own. Play the guitar and make it sound like a voice. That's singing. Are you just about ready, or do you want me to compliment you some more? Sometimes it takes Chet a long time to get in tune because he...
I'm not playing, I'm tuning.
You're tuning, all right. I think if you just get those pegs parallel to each other, that...
Does that sound all right to you?
It sounds good to me. We could take a vote of the House. I think that's good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Chet Atkins. Played a tune by Don McLean called Vincent. This portion of our show brought to you by Bertha's Kitty Boutique in the Dales for persons who care about cats. Remember, the white sale on cats continues for another couple days out at Bertha's Kitty Boutique. Get 2 white cats for the price of 1, and when you get 2, you get the 3rd extra for no charge, dealer prep not included. You know, just because your cat uses its paws and its mouth for personal hygiene doesn't mean that it would absolutely choose to if it had something else instead. Not good at all. Hair in the mouth, and it gets up there on the roof of the mouth, too. That's the worst part. Time maybe to get a pair of these little grooming gloves that come from Bertha's Kitty Boutique fit on either paw snugly. Oh, your cat will love it. And speaking of grooming, maybe pick up a little litter box rake for your cat to use too, instead of its hands. You wouldn't want to, would you? And neither does your cat. Bertha's Kitty Boutique in the Dales, Gloria, Del Clyde, Del Air, Del Kings, Del Chip, and Del Mondale, and all the other fine shopping centers near you. Here's a little song from the Bertha's Songs of the Cat songbook. This is a little moral song, a little cautionary tale here about not getting too far above your station. Or if you get too far above it, remembering the way back. It's called Cat, You Better Come On Home. My cat, she pleaded, and my cat, she cried for me to open up the door and let her go outside. Then she sat on the lawn underneath the tree, pretending that she couldn't hear me. As I said, Cat, you better come on home. Cat, you better come on home. There's dogs in the dark waiting to attack, and cat hawks looking for a late night snack. So cat, oh cat, you better come on home. My cat, she turned and she tossed her head. Well, I may or may not come, she said. I'm a cat who is deeply dissatisfied. I'll let you know when I decide. I said, cat, you better come on home. Cat, you better come on home. I'll close this door, I'll lock the bolt. You spent the night in the snow and the cold. So cat, oh cat, you better come on home. She said, I'd rather be a cat who meets a terrible fate than live with a man who don't appreciate that a cat is independent and a true highbrow and demands a little high-class chow. I've seen the food that you feed your guests, the turkey and the tuna and the chicken breast. But do you share them with your cat? No, you don't. No way, not the poached perch liver pate. And I said, cat, you better come on home. Cat, you better come on home. I'm not about to stand here and argue with a cat. Now what would the next door neighbors think of that? So cat, oh cat, you better come on home. Well, I never, she said, and she turned in a hop. You've seen the last of your old cat Puff. She left with a sardonic laugh, and she left for a year and a half. I felt so bad, full of guilt and shame. I walked around town just calling her name with a great big plate of Chateaubriand and some tuna fish in my hand. And I said, cat, I wish you'd come on home. Oh, cat, I wish you'd come on home. Oh, come on, old Puff, come home with us. I got a lot of fringe benefits I'd like to discuss. So, cat, oh, cat, you better come on home. I saw her 6 months later in a cat magazine. She was the #1 TV cat food queen with a fat contract with a cat food firm and her hair done up in a perm. I could tell it was Puff, though this cat was wrapped in a white mink stole and her teeth were capped. She was lying on a beach in the south of Greece. She'd changed her name to Clarice, and I thought, cat, you better come on home. Oh, cat, you better come on home. You're a top cat now and you're riding high, but they dump you in the river when the well runs dry. So cat, oh cat, you better come on home. Sure enough, she came back one day last fall. She was on her last leg, she could barely crawl, with a great big tail dragging on the ground, because she weighed about 89 pounds. She looked like something that the cat dragged in, with her tongue hanging out on her double chin, and great big bags underneath her eyes. She said, it's me, surprise. I said, cat, I'm glad you come on home. Cat, I'm glad you come on home. No need to explain, my old cat friend, why I'm just glad to have you back again. Oh cat, you better come on home. I picked her up like a big fur sack. She said, easy, Jack, I got a salmon on my back. I got a big salmon habit, and that's no lie. I got a gold cold turkey on the tuna fish pie. If other cats could only know to hang their hats on the status quo, because the very worst thing that a cat can do is to make all its dreams come true. And I said, cat, you better come on home. Cat, you better come on home. There's dogs in the dark waiting to attack, and cat hawks looking for a late night snack. So cat, oh cat, you better come on home. You can seek your fortune, but nevertheless, remember your name. and your address of Cat. Oh, Cat, you better come on home. That's from Bertha's Pity Boutique. Yes, sir. Let's send out some greetings here to people and wish a happy birthday to Lawrence Grusing in Clara City, Minnesota, from his son-in-law and his daughter Marty. Happy birthday to George from Deb, Dan, Ben, and Ann, who love you bigger than the Sears Tower. And congratulations to Tom Gilman on finally becoming Eagle Scout from Mom and Dad. Happy 12th birthday to Catherine Page from her dad and big sister. We both love you, even when it's not real obvious, says someone. Congratulations to Fred and Sharon 14 on your 25th wedding anniversary. And hello and I love you to Karen in Ames, Iowa, from Dick in Harbin, China, where they don't serve cream of mushroom soup. Hello to George and Nan at George's 50th high school reunion from Dave, Cheryl, and Barbara. And a happy 75th birthday to Eunice Grier in Turtle River, Minnesota. Happy 57th anniversary to Marjorie and Ned Hills in Fort Myers Beach, Florida. Happy 38th birthday to Jerry Sikorsky, whose parents say that his first words were "Stop acid rain." Happy 50th wedding anniversary to Griff and Esther Squire in Petaluma, California. And congratulations to Jean on your 40th birthday and your upcoming marriage from Mom and Dad in Gaylord, Minnesota. Your life is just beginning. Oh, Miss Jean Redpath, going to come out and do us a little song here with Prudence, Mr. Pete Ostrushko, Chet, and Johnny. Oh, start it off there, Peter.
Sonny, don't go away. I'm here all alone. Your daddy's a sailor, never comes home. Nights are so long, silence goes on. I'm feeling so tired and not all that strong. Sonny lives on a pond in a wide open space. Take off your shoes, stay out of the rain. Lay down your head by the soft river bed. Sonny always remembers the words Mama said. Sonny, don't go away. I'm here all alone. Your daddy's a sailor, never comes home. Nights are so long, silence goes on. I'm feeling so tired, not all that strong. Sonny works on the land, though he's barely a man. There's came home. Sometimes he wonders what his life might have been. Still from the grave, Mama's voice haunts his dream. Sonny, don't go away. I'm here all alone. Your daddy's a sailor, never comes home. Nights are so long, silence goes on. I'm feeling so tired and not all that strong. Sonny, don't go away. Thank you, Peter. Thank you. Thank you, Johnny. I get to talk as well now. It's a little terrifying, especially when all of the fiddles and guitars are removed. It's actually easier to sing than it is to talk, especially when you're trying to replace a fiddle. We have a whole body of music in Scotland intended actually to be played on the fiddle, and given a situation where the fiddler had not appeared, or more likely had disappeared, then someone with the known stamina and preferably 3 lungs and a double-jointed tongue would be pressed into service to sing for dancing. If you are bounding full of ambition, there's a minimal amount of room in the aisles. Feel free. It comes in Strathspey, in reel and Scottish dancing. That's not that stuff, that's Highland dancing, which is done to the pipes. It's the very formal country dancing, done to the fiddle. Wonderful stuff. If you want to sing, feel free. I'll be thrilled, delighted, and very surprised. Lang, lang, the widow gate afore she got her fare, and the only tune that he could play was Smith the gallant fireman. Bonny lass, come her the bun, and the nayest the nairn bun. I'm the fader o' your bairn, and fit the devil ails ye. Hoch on, my bonny lass, and varget ye your bairn. Hoch on, my bonny lass, and varget ye your bairn. Got him frae a think of chill coming by the cairn. Got him frae a think of chill coming by the bairn. Oh, I lost my love and I didn't ken who. Oh, I lost my love and I care na. The losing the yin is the gain and the 12 and else and here another affair na. Lost my love and I didn't ken who. Oh, I lost my love and I care na. The losing the yin is the gain and the 12 and else and here another affair na. Some fell down in their bended knees, the ladies fell a fainting. I felt in my bread and cheese, I was made of the main thing. Drunk since ever I saw your face, oh I'm drunk since ever I met ye. Drunk since ever I saw your face, money's a shell and I've lent ye. Peas brose again, mother, peas brose again. Feed me like a blackbird and me your only wane. Peas brose again, mother, peas brose again. Twice the day already and here they come again. Oh, peas brose again, mother, peas brose again. Feed me like a blackbird and me your only wane. Peas brose again, mother, peas brose again. Twice the day already, here they peas brose again. Feed me like a blackbird and me your only wane. Peas brose again, mother, peas brose again. Twice the day already, here they come again. Oh, bonny, bonny Bessie Lee, come to bed and cuddle me. Round the blankets round your knee, keep your silly warm. Bonny, bonny Bessie Lee, come to bed and cuddle me. Round the blankets round your knee, keep your silly warm. Ken you what my granny did, my granny did, my granny did? Ken you what my granny did for a bobby? She cocked it up her witten leg, her witten leg, her witten leg. Cocked it up her witten leg and blacked my tail, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle, button, bend my tittle, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle, button, bend my tittle, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle. G.S.C. Judge, you get the black, Helen Wallace, get the bottle, for the bride is out a little, for the made a broken tottle, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle, button, bend my tittle, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle, button, bend my tittle, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle. Who'd get right to the fight, fought to buy a cold riddle, like a shake him again, time, I cast my tail, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle, button, bend my tittle, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle, tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle, but then with tottle, time, I cast my tail, tottle. He's torn a rabbit. Ramagun, he's torna, Ramagun, he's torna, Ramagun. De beurje zie ze kan el trekken te lun. Adu fell off a dike. Adu fell off a dike. A pigeon fell off a wall. Adu fell off a dike. Oh, the brinkoe's got newton it in all the corn. The brinkoe's got newton it in all the corn. Oh, the brinkoe's got newton it in all the corn. What a it's the day, can he get the morn? Oh, the brinkoe's got newton it in all the corn. The brinkoe's got newton it in all the corn. The brinkoe's got newton it in all the corn. What a it's the day, can he get the morn?
That's Gene Redpath. She'll be back a little bit later to do some more for you. This first portion of our show brought to you by Powder Milk Biscuits in the Big Blue Box. Heavens, they're tasty and expeditious. And also by Bertha's Kitty Boutique in the Dales, Royaldale, Clydesdale, Airedale, Teesdale, Chippendale, Mondale, and all the other fine shopping centers. Bertha's Kitty Boutique for persons who care about cats. Oh, if you keep a cat or keep 2 or 3, you know that cats are creatures too, like you and me, and have needs as we do. And if they could speak, they'd say, I need some stuff from Bertha's Kitty Boutique. You're listening to a Prairie Home Companion coming to you live from the World Theater in downtown St. Paul. Production and distribution of our show made possible in part by a major grant from Cargill Incorporated, Merchants and Processors of Agricultural Products, with additional funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. Mr. Phil Brunel at the organ. Great reach from the left hand. Thank you, sir. We send out hello here to Christine in Lincoln, Nebraska, your sweetie Mrs. U who's lost somewhere in Minnesota, and to Alan in the big city from your friends in Bartlesville, Oklahoma. If you come back home, we promise to give you a parade. This half hour brought to you by the Fearmonger Shop, serving all your phobia needs since 1954, and by Cavalier, the counter-offensive company offering fast airstrike service against any target, day or night. When you've taken all you can take, had it up to here and can't take any more, call Cavalier and let them take it from there. Angry about local government, irked, peeved, or ticked off at neighbors, or just feeling angry in general, Cavalier delivers airstrikes they'll remember. And remember, you did not hear it on this radio show. Also brought to you by Raw Bits, the tough natural cereal made from oat hulls and wheat chaff. Raw, ready, bits. It's not for everybody. Send us your resume. We'll let you know if you qualify for Raw Bits.
I'm the owner of the Raw Bits Company. And people ask me all the time, how come I don't sell raw bits in stores? I'll tell you what I tell them. If we had raw bits on supermarket shelves, anybody could pick it up and throw it in their cart with the frozen pizza, the snack cakes, and the quart bottles of pop. I don't want people like that eating raw bits. We advertise on this show because the listeners tend to be fairly good candidates for raw bits. About 15% of you make it. Raw bits. It's not just a cereal, it's a moral statement.
That's raw bits, oat hulls and wheat chaff, not sold in stores, available by invitation only. So write the raw bit selection committee today and include two references. That's RAWBITS, raw bits. Oh, Miss Jean Redpath, come and help me on a song here that you sort of helped me write. Jeannie came to lunch at my house on Wednesday and made a little casserole. And it was so good, sat and wrote a song about it while it was in the oven. It cooked at 350 degrees for about a half hour, and it took me about 40 minutes to write the song. And it wasn't that dry. When I got out, I thought it was good. Here's a little song about it, an old favorite of yours, I hope, and mine too. Soft as the voice of my mother, calling as the night shadows fell, calling her children to supper. Oh, what a heavenly smell there on the dining room table, served from a stained glass bowl, eaten with jello and a Kool-Aid. Tune of the food of my soul. Tune of casserole. Oh, how dear to my lips. Noodles and a tuna and the mushrooms and the chips. Only a small can of tuna, mushroom soup, celery, and peas, mixed with a quart of egg noodles, sprinkled with chips and with cheese. For my every journey is over. Gladly I take to the afterwards in the church they'll serve tuna casserole there, Lord willing. Tuna casserole, casserole. Oh, how dear to my lips. You know the recipe. Sing it. And the tuna and the mushrooms and the almost like a hymn, isn't it? Thank you, Gene. Oh, let's come in here with a message from another sponsor, talk a little bit here about the Chicken Feather Siding Company. Why not try the natural beauty of chicken feathers on your home? Operators standing by down at the Chicken Feather Siding Company right now, so just give them a call, and they'll come out with their highly trained professional crew and brush on a coating of tar on your house and use a powerful blower to plaster every square inch of your house with the attractive and protective warmth of chicken feathers. Thousands of satisfied customers can't be wrong.
I'm from Austin, Texas, and I bought wood siding from a house, and the termites ate it off. I bought steel siding, and it rusted off. I bought vinyl siding, and it melted in the sun and dripped off. Finally, I bought chicken feather siding, and it stays right on there, even in those terrible sandstorms we get. Sure, it ruffles a little in the wind, but what the heck? So do I. I'm so happy with my chicken feather siding, I'm about to bust, and it doesn't really smell all that bad either, except when it rains. My kids love to go outside and pet the house.
Yes, call this very minute and they'll do your garage at no extra charge. Remember, Chicken Feather Siding comes with a feather-clad warranty and requires no maintenance except for occasional waxing and preening. Now available with turkey trim, too. You'll be the envy of your neighborhood with Chicken Feather Siding with turkey trim. It's all true, folks, or we couldn't put it on the air, and you know it. Chicken Feather Siding, now available with turkey trim. Let's do something distinguished here, John. Check us out.
Evening chores are over at the ranch house on the plains, and all I've got to do is lay around. Then I saddle up my pony and ride off down the trail to watch the evening sun go down. Riding down the canyon to watch the sun go down. A picture that no artist there could make. White-faced cattle lowing on the mountainside. I hear a coyote whining for his mate. Cactus plants are blooming, sagebrush everywhere. Granite spires are standing all around. I'll tell you folks, it's heaven to be riding down the trail when the desert sun goes down.
Yes, those realistic animal sounds mean that it's time for the old radio bunkhouse, brought to you by Prairie Dog Granola Bars, the healthy chaw you can eat all day without spitting. And now we join the boys out on the front porch of the old bunkhouse out at the old ranch, alongside the old Chisholm Trail.
You know, Tex, I just don't have the energy I used to have for roping dogies. I think I ought to lose some weight, because people don't call me Slim anymore. They're calling me by my real name, Curtis. And that's what I come out west to forget. But I'm just so hungry all the time, I could eat a horse. Steady, big fella, it's just an expression.
Well, why don't you try a cowboy grapefruit diet, Slim? I read a good article on it in the Better Homes and Saddles.
Why, it's Miss Prudence. What's wrong?
It's Rustler's boys. They took everything. The motorcycles, the three-wheelers, they even got my Cadillac.
Don't worry, ma'am. We'll catch them. Start the pickup, Tex, and I'll grab the weapons.
10-4, Slim.
Minutes later, farther down the road,
They gave us a slip, Tex. I'm going to call in the chopper from the Double Bar X. The boys over there owe us one, you know. Dusty, this is Charlie Bravo.
Maybe bean sprouts and tofu is what you need, Slim. That stuff takes longer to eat, and you lose your appetite from it.
a little bit later, just north of there,
That's him up ahead, Tex, in the big truck. Lock in that radar.
10-4, Slim. How about whole green roughage? You getting enough of that?
about 10 minutes later, in an undisclosed location.
They got our engine, Tex. This chopper will never fly again. I got to throw it over this cliff here so they can't trace us. Well, there goes the Double Bar X chopper. Now I owe them one. Crank up that speedboat and we'll cut them off across the lake.
Maybe you drink too much coffee, Slim. There was an article on that in Organic Chuckwagon magazine, and it shows that caffeine keeps you up and you eat more when you're awake, don't you know?
Exactly 12 minutes later, 14 miles to seaward off Bontom Island.
Dang it, I wish we'd have checked the gas tank. We're dead in the water.
On the other hand, Slim, maybe all you need is a good exercise program.
A little while later, an incredible distance away from there,
Freeze, you hombres. We're the boys from the bunkhouse.
Shucks, they got us. We're done for.
I'll read them their rights, Slim.
somewhat later, back at the bunkhouse.
Here, boys, I brought y'all a gift for saving my ranch.
Well, I'll be dogged. Look at this, Tex. It's a giant box of Prairie Dog granola bars.
Yes, boys, each Prairie Dog granola bar contains 100% of your minimum daily requirement of vitamins and minerals, and they provide the natural bulk you need for everyday good health.
I think that's the answer for you, Slim.
Yep, partner, it's goodbye to beef jerky and corn curls.
You've been listening to the old radio bunkhouse, coming out of your old radio into your old living room. Brought to you as always by Prairie Dog granola bars. They're better than chewing tobacco. And Johnny, you don't have to spit.
Well, as cactus plants are blooming, sagebrush everywhere's, granite spires are standing all around. I'll tell you folks, it's heaven to be riding down the trail when the desert sun goes down.
Oh, Johnny and Chet and Pete. Let's close off this first half of our show here with a little fiddle tune and bring up our three fiddlers. It's a great chance for us to play a little dance music here before we take an intermission. Mr. Atkins, we have two terrific fiddlers and one man who used to fiddle and believes that he still can. Though I can't help but notice that he's still got his price tag on the end of that.
I got it new. It's a Stradivarius.
Hey, oh, that was a joke. I'm sorry. Gonna look at it.
Not cheap.
$8. That's pretty good. All right, let's see how it plays. Johnny, kick us off.
toe kicks brown. Only song that I can sing is Boiling Cabbage Down.
That's the Chet Atkins, Johnny Gamble, and Peter Schusko on the three fiddles. We're going to pause now and take a brief intermission, give our friends here in the World Theater a chance to get up and move around a little bit, and then we'll be back with the second half of our broadcast. With Mr. Johnny and Chet and Pete all back on the second half, the Butch Thompson Trio, Fred Newman with us, and Mr. Philip Brunel. Gene Redpath is here, and there'll be more to come in the Lake Wobegon segment of our show. You're listening to a Prairie Home Companion coming to you live from the World Theater in downtown St. Paul. Welcome back now to the second half of our live broadcast of a Prairie Home Companion coming to you from the World Theater in downtown St. Paul. This portion of our show brought to you by your friends in Lake Wobegon, Minnesota, the little town that time forgot that the decades cannot improve, including the Chatterbox Cafe where Dorothy presides, the place to go. That's just like home. Time now to stop in at Dorothy's if you want to pick up some of Dorothy's own great fried chicken. Yes, sir, before it gets too hot, so she doesn't feel like doing that. Chicken fried the way the chicken itself would have wanted had it known how good it could become after its demise. Brought to you too by the Sidetrack Tap, where Wally and Evelyn wait to welcome you. The dim little place there on Main Street where the pinball machine never tilts, where the clock is always a half hour slow, the boiled eggs are fresh every month, and love never dies. Brought to you too by Ralph's Pretty Good Grocery. Remember, if you can't find it at Ralph's, you can probably get along without it. Let's come in here with just a little message from Worst Case Scenario. Worst case scenario, when it's important to know the worst that could happen.
Worst case scenario, Frank here.
Hey, the wife and I were thinking about taking in a movie tonight, and we sort of wondered what could happen.
Worst case scenario, you could bend over to see what was on the floor your foot was stuck to and knock yourself unconscious on the seat back and tip over into the lap of the woman next to you who could scream for the manager, and he could turn on the lights and shut off the movie, and people in the audience could pelt you with M&Ms and raisin balls. And by the time you explained everything, the newspaper reporter could already have filed his story, and the next day your boss could fire you, and in the divorce settlement your wife could get everything except your brown suit, and you could spend the rest of your life walking along roadways with a big garbage bag picking up aluminum cans.
Thanks a lot. Say, Frank, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I'm I don't need to go into a lot of detail on this, but I'm the host of a radio show, and we were kind of thinking about doing our show live on television. What would be the worst?
Are you sure you want the worst case scenario on that?
I see your point. Worst case scenario, when you need to know the worst sometimes, but not necessarily right while you're doing it. Here's a little song. You all know this song. You feel like singing? Good? All right. Well, that's good. I don't know what I would have done if you'd said no. What's the key in this? In the key of F, is that all right? What does it sound like? Just give him a chance here. There's an old song, and the women get that beautiful high harmony part, that high descending harmony. Tell me why the stars do shine. Do you know that? The men sing the boring part, the melody. Tell me why the stars do shine. Tell me why the ivy twines. So you sound once. Tell me why the stars so blue, and I will tell you just need a few more basses now on the bottom here. I pledge allegiance to the flag and the republic for which it stands. You don't need to rise. One nation indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice for all. This is my solo verse here, if you don't mind. In the event of a sudden loss of cabin pressure, the panel above, your heads will automatically open. Grasp the mask firmly and breathe naturally. Everybody. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I pray the Lord my soul to keep.
in Minnesota to come upon Lake Wobegon. Old town, I smell the coffee. If I could see you one more time, I can't stay, you know. I left so long ago. I'm just a stranger with memories of those I once knew, the old home place. I think I know that face. Just wait, I'll get it. How are you? One more spring in Minnesota to come upon Lake Wobegon. Old town, I smell the coffee. If I could see you one more time. Oh, that yard, that tree, you climbed it once with me, and we talked of cities that we'd live someday. I left, old friend, now I'm back again. Please say that you miss me since I went away. One more time, this dance together, just you and I. Now don't be shy. This time I know I'll hear the music. If you would hold me one more time. If you would hold me one more time.
Mr. Peter Frisco. Sweet old song about the old hometown. Well, it's been a quiet week in Lake Wobegon, my hometown. It's quiet because spring is come and spring is awesome and magnificent, and everybody's quiet in the face of it. It's just almost too much for us. When everything turns green and there's so much life in the air, thinking about an afternoon like Tuesday or Wednesday afternoon, after that tremendous rain that we had in the morning, walking outside in town, and the moisture in the air and the smell of grass coming up from beneath your feet. Almost too much, almost like being a fish and breathing through gills to smell it. Makes you feel like you're 17 again, and I couldn't take that. Birds arriving in town by the busload in Lake Wobegon come back from their winter vacations wherever they went. And the Norwegian bachelor farmers hung out their sheets this last week, finally washing their sheets after those long winter months. Now it's finally safe to do it. Walk around town now that the screens are on the windows. Hear all sorts of things coming out of houses that you weren't meant to listen to. Husbands and wives discussing things with each other. Listen to piano lessons, that tune that kids have been working on every spring. The one that goes da 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 dum da dum 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 dee 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 da dum da da dee. Smell floor wax coming out of houses. Smell hamburgers and onions cooking. Walk around town admiring the lawn ornaments and the yard work, admiring the flowers and eavesdropping on conversations. Hearing voices come out of the high school. Smell the macaroni hot dish that is cooking in the cafeteria, and upstairs Miss Melrose's English class reciting the words from Chaucer that everyone in my town has memorized for generations. Wanda Aprila with her Shora Sota, the drocht of March had perced to the rota, and bathed every vine in sweet liquor, of which vertu engendered is the flower. One Zephyrus eke with his sway to breath inspired hath in every holt and heath the tender crops, and the young son hath in the ram his half-course run. And small of fowless maken melody that slapen all the necht with open ear. Now small and foul maken melodia in my hometown in Minnesota. Although those lines were written 600 years ago, it still describes spring, the sweet breath of the wind and the tender crops and the small fowler maken melodia that sleep in all the necht. I don't know if they sleep with open ear or not. Mine ear are closed during the necht. I hope yours too. I went up there on Sunday, this last Sunday, on a pilgrimage of my own. Went up to visit my family and was surprised to find that they weren't home. I hadn't called ahead, but somehow I always had the feeling they were up there waiting for me to come, and so it was dismaying. Walked in, door was unlocked, of course, walked in the kitchen. Called, nobody was there, felt bad. Felt worse when it looked as if they'd left in a hurry out the back door. There was a dish on the table with cookie crumbs on it. My mother would never leave that there unless she was running. And so I felt bad. I've always been a little sensitive about whether or not people really liked me, or if there was something else involved if they did it for a reason. I've worried about it since I was a kid. I saw my mother once give money to my best friend, Lance. She gave him $3. She was buying salve from him. He was selling salve door to door. But a lot of kids sold salve. Why did she have to buy so much? Suddenly I understood why he chose me to be on his softball team. Well, they weren't home, so I drove into town where there was a traffic rush on Sunday morning, people leaving church. It was Confirmation Sunday at Lake Wobegon Lutheran Church. There were 13 young people who were 14 years old who gone through confirmation class and who stood up at the altar rail on Sunday morning and were admitted into the circle of believers. 14 of them, including the Tollerud's third oldest girl, Lois, was there, I discovered afterward. stood up there in the front of the church, these young people, and were asked by Pastor Inkvist some of the deepest questions about the faith, questions that have troubled theologians for centuries. And these young people answered them readily from memory. Stood there, including Lois, took their first communion, and went outside afterward and stood under the trees and asked each other, "Were you scared? Were you nervous?" Said, "No, not as much as I thought I would be. I wasn't very nervous at all." And all went home with all their relatives who'd gathered for this great event and sat around and had chuck roast and potatoes and gravy and string beans and Jell-O with Miracle Whip. And some of them, the kids, had their first real cup of coffee, which they found to be bitter and oily and to make them dizzy and nauseous. But they are now Lutherans, and coffee is an article of the faith. They drank coffee by the gallon up at the Tollerud's house, where all the relatives had come to celebrate Lois's coming into the church. They drank it by the gallon because it had been, you see, a 2-hour service at the church. They don't hold back for this. There was the regular service plus the bonus, and in the Lutheran Church there aren't the opportunities for movement, up and down in the pews, and calisthenics that you find in other competing faiths. So people were stiff and lame when they got out of church, and sleepy and irritable, and all the Tollerudes especially crammed into that little house out on the farm. They drank coffee by the gallon as they sat there. The Tollerudes are all so agreeable, you see, all such quiet, agreeable people that they tend to make each other a little drowsy, and so drink more coffee perhaps than other people do. It is their substitute for a good argument. But if Lois had spoken up, they wouldn't have had to drink so much. She sat there, tall, shy, 14-year-old girl, wanting to tell them that she wasn't sure that she believed in God, that she had lost her faith. She thought, she wasn't sure, might have lost her faith on Friday night or sometime Saturday morning. She's a tall girl. She's grown about 4 inches this last year, which has worn her out. So she is even quieter than she used to be. Tall, shy girl with a beautiful complexion, which she keeps beautiful and pale by blushing often, which is good for the circulation, and which makes boys admire her more, which makes her blush more. And she has become beautiful this last year. Sitting across from her in geometry class ever since September has been a boy who has looked every school afternoon as if he was just about to speak to her. And finally, on Friday, sent her a 23-page letter written in a small ballpoint hand, telling her how much she means to him, how important she is in his life, that he believes that God has written their names together in some kind of date book that God keeps in heaven, and that if they do not go on in life as a couple, that somehow nature itself will start to crumble and the moon and stars will fall at a great inconvenience. inconvenience to the rest of us. But she wasn't thinking about him, about boys. It wasn't what made her blush, Lois, as she sat with her family around the table, eating chuck roast and potatoes and gravy, string beans, jello with Miracle Whip. She was thinking that she ought to say to them that she'd lost her faith. She thought. Then they wouldn't have needed so much coffee. She thought she should say it, especially when her mother brought in her cake, her confirmation cake, a white angel food cake with Lois's confirmation verse written in blue frosting on the top of it. Be not conformed to this world, but rather be transformed by the renewing of your minds, that ye may know what is that good and perfect and acceptable will of God. It's a big cake. She used the extra fine nozzle on the frosting gun. Lois felt so ashamed. She wasn't sure if there was a God, because on Friday night, she'd been home babysitting. Her folks, Darrell and Marilyn, had gone into town to have supper with Lois's prayer parents, who are a couple. There's a couple appointed by Pastor Inkvist out of the congregation for each child who's to be confirmed. And your prayer parents, they pray for you for 3 weeks before you're confirmed. And when Lois found out that her prayer parents were Val Tollefson and his wife Ruth, people whom she had never liked, she felt her faith start to slip a little bit. And then watching television and thinking about it, watching a show on television in which men in white suits beat people senseless with clubs and shot them with machine guns and threw their bodies out of helicopters, which for television is fairly innocuous stuff. But in Lake Wobegon, where the picture is so fuzzy during the warm months, it was like radio, and somehow was more horrible and seemed more real for the picture being not there, just listening to it. It seemed to her, listening to this show at home late at night, hearing twigs crack in the backyard, that the world is not under the sway of love, but is controlled by dark, evil forces, that the world is under the control of a dark force that is constantly looking for us, constantly seeking us out and calling our name and calling us towards the dark edge. She thought of this and remembered how, as she sat in the house with her younger brothers and sisters and tried to pray, to ask God to please say that he knew her, that this prayer seemed to echo in her head as if it didn't go anyplace and was only imagination. So when she saw her confirmation cake and the verse, she felt ashamed and excused herself from the table before dishes and put on her blue jacket and walked out across the corn stubble, through the windbreak, out past the woodpile, out across the field, towards a farther line of trees, and towards the ravine where she'd spent so many hours as a child. Lois walked out on this brilliant sunny day. And when she came up towards where the gravel road meets the county road, she saw a car, a white car, and a man in a brown raincoat standing beside it, and felt that maybe this was the sign, maybe this was the parable of the Good Samaritan. This man was there, put there by God for her to go and testify to him, and in this way her faith would be restored. And she walked towards him down the gravel, and saw as she got closer, the man step towards her, and from the smile on his face and the look of his hand as he reached out towards her, she knew that he was put there by an evil force, and that she had come the wrong way, that this was evil roaming the world and looking for whomever it may devour, and she turned and tried to run and tripped and fell and said, please, please, she said, don't do it. Which surprised me, because I hadn't seen her for a long time. We had been close once. I'd been a friend of the family, enough of a friend so that I was her godfather at her baptism. I know I wasn't the first choice. I know I was kind of a joke candidate. I know that Darrell had wanted his brother Wally, and Marilyn had nominated me to show Darrell what a bad choice Wally would be, and Darrell said, well, all right, if you want him, go ahead. And there they were, stuck with me. I knew this at this child's baptism 14 years ago. There she was on the gravel. I said, Lois, I said, don't you remember me? I said, it's me, your godfather. I said, some places I'm almost famous. I'm surprised you didn't see who I was. How are you? I said. I helped her up. I brushed the gravel off her jeans. She said, I haven't seen you for 5 years. Why not? I said, I've been busy. I'm sorry. I should have been there. So we walked down the road, down towards the ravine. We walked along and talked about her loss of faith and other things. I reminded her of her baptism, what it was like. I said, did you ever meet my Aunt Lois? She was the one who you were named after. Well, Lois didn't know that. My Aunt Lois, you see, was Marilyn Tallerud's Sunday school teacher. So named the daughter after. My Aunt Lois was my youngest aunt, and she was single when I was a little boy, so she had a lot of time to spend with me. Her favorite nephew was what she told me. She said, I love you more than all the rest, but don't tell the others. And because she was such a young aunt, she was more like a sister. And we used to go on the bus, my aunt and I, when I was a boy, down to Minneapolis to visit her aunt, my great aunt, who actually wasn't that great, but it was a nice trip and fun, because my Aunt Lois was young and she was like me. She loved to pretend we were somebody else, pretend we were somebody, pretend this was our bus. It was a private bus and we'd go any place we wanted to. Our favorite game to play was pretending that we didn't know each other. Pretend that we were strangers. I'd get up out of my seat as the bus headed towards Minneapolis. Get out of my seat and walk back up the aisle and turn around and come back to my seat and say, is this seat taken? May I sit here? And she'd say, sure, go ahead. I sat down. I'd say, it sure is a pleasant day today, isn't it? Which we didn't do in our family. We didn't talk to strangers. But you see, we were strangers, so we could be whoever we wanted to and do as we wished. So we talked to each other. Yes, she said, it's a pleasant day. She said, are you going to Minneapolis then? I said, well, I'm going to Minneapolis, but then I'm going on to New York City, where I am starring in a Broadway play. And then in a couple of months, I expect to go back to my home in Paris, France, where I have an apartment on the Champs-Élysées. I've come out to Minnesota only for the funeral of my aunt, an aunt who has died. She was fairly young. Well, that's a terrible thing. That's a terrible thing, she said. You must feel very bad. You must miss this aunt terribly. You must have been very close to her. I said, no, I wasn't particularly. But she was sort of family, I said. You see, I was adopted. I was an adopted child. My real parents were Broadway actors. And they sent me out here to live on the farm because they thought I would get more to eat. But people out here don't really understand people like me, and I can't say I really miss her all that much. Which made her feel terrible. And she turned her face toward the window, and she looked out the window as the bus rolled along until minutes passed, and I couldn't stand it any longer. I turned to her, and I said, talk to me. And she said, I don't need to talk to you. I said, talk to me. She said, if you bother me, I'll talk to the driver and have him throw you off the bus. She said, I don't know you. I said, you know me. Say that you know me. She said, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never laid eyes on you before. I don't know you from a bale of hay. I said, you know me. Say that you know me. Until finally I couldn't stand it any longer. And I began to cry. And then she put her hand on my shoulder. And then I could be who I was again. That was another Lois years ago. As I walked along with Lois Tollerud. She said, why were you parked on the road, standing there on the road? I said, well, when I come to Lake Wobegon, I always like to come out here to these woods here, because when I was a boy, we used to camp out here. The Boy Scouts camped out here when Einar Tingvold was our scoutmaster, and he used to get so mad at us because we wouldn't learn semaphore signals. When we were out here camping, he'd get so mad at us that he would sometimes throw things out into the woods. And when we were here one night, he grabbed the eggs that we were going to have for breakfast in the morning, and he threw them one at a time out over that line of birch trees. And each egg he threw harder and higher. And when he got done with all 12 of them, he reached for anything else he could find and grabbed his binoculars. And he couldn't stop himself. He was so furious at us. He threw them. As he threw them, he tried to draw them back. He tried to reach for the strap as it went out over the birch trees. And we looked for those binoculars all that evening and the next morning, and we never found them. And I've always felt that if I come out here and stand here, that someday, just by luck, I'd see a reflection of glass, and I'd find Einar's binoculars. And it's been 30 years. But they were good binoculars. And I could take them to him, and he would forgive me. But I've never found them. She said, that's a lie, isn't it? I said, yes, it is. The fact was, I was there because I'd had way too much coffee to drink. And I know people who live out there along that road pretty well, but not that well, to drive up to the house. So I was awfully glad when she invited me to come to the Tolleroods house and have a piece of her confirmation cake. We walked in the door, and there they were, all sitting there around the table. Not too glad to see me, but glad enough. They said, would you like some coffee? I said, in just a moment. I would, yes. I said, is it still back there off the kitchen? They said, yes. Go ahead. And then later I sat down for cake. I got a little piece of it that said, con but for on it. Con but for. My little piece of the confirmation verse. Be not conformed to this world, but rather be ye transformed by the renewing of your minds. Well, I'm transformed by this world, the one that I look at. It's so beautiful. I believe that it has the power to make us brave and to make us good. This world and each other and the people in it. It has the power to give us faith. The sweet breath of the wind and the tender crops and the small vowels maken melodie dat slepen alle nikt with open ear. That's the news from Lake Wolfgang. Well, all the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and all the children are above average. Oh, Miss Jean Redpath, come and sing us a song here, would you?
Maxwell ten breeze are bonny, or early falls the dew, and 'twas there that Annie Lottie gave me her promise true, gave me her promise true. That ne'er forgot will be, and for bonny Annie Lottie I would lay me down indeed. Beautiful tune, I'm sure you know it. You could hum. Like dew on the gowans lying is the fall her fairy feet, and like winds in summer sighing, her voice is low and sweet, her voice is low and sweet, and she's all the world to me, and for bonny Annie Lottie I would lay me down indeed. Oh, you can do better than that, don't be so shy. Her voice is low and sweet, and she's all the world to me, and for bonny Annie Lottie I would lay me down. Lovely, lovely, thank you.
Thank you, Miss Jeannie. Thank you, Jeannie. I'll send out congratulations on the new baby to Liz and Jay in Pierce, South Dakota. Wish we were there, say Susan and David, who are here. And congratulations to Tony and Georgina, who rediscovered each other after 40 years. They're here in the audience tonight. Happy 93rd birthday to Susan Weinrich, St. Charles, from your granddaughter, who flew in to see the show and forgot her glasses. Thank goodness it's a radio show, she says. To Judy in New Jersey, St. Paul is great. Come west, young woman, says Ted. And hello to Kathy and Roger and the boys. This would have all been possible without you, but we send our love anyway, say Cindy and John. Happy anniversary to Alana and Clayton in Des Moines. You'll hear this when you get home. Love from Craig and Deb. And congratulations to Alan Chamberlain in Cazenovia, New York, who has a new hip. And Frank and Cynthia hope that it makes her happy. And why shouldn't it? Mine has given me a lot of pleasure. And that was just the left one. Johnny, let's do a little tune here. Let's give those folks at home a little chance to dance. And Mr. Chet Atkins, put on that gray bonnet here. Show for tonight. We got to hightail it out of here. We want to thank Chet Atkins and Mr. Johnny Gimble, Gene Redpath, the Butch Thompson Trio, Peter Skushko, Mr. Philip Brunel, Frederick Newman, Mr. Howard Moore, Joe Moraney back here on the clarinet, Mr. Peter Eklund, Bruce Kalin, Gary Gauger, Prudence Johnson, and Tom Keith for all being on our show tonight. And you too for coming. What a pleasure. Thank you so much. Pardon me if I'm sentimental when we say goodbye. Don't be angry with me should I cry. As you leave, yet little dream of days gone by. Now and then there's a fool such as I. Thank you so much for being here, folks. Thanks for coming, and thanks for letting us come into your home. We'll see you next week, I hope. Good night now. Good night. Hope you had a good time. We'll see you soon. Good night.
Cargill has funded this special telecast of A Prairie Home Companion. We've also funded the program for 11 years on public radio. Tune it in for more news of Lake Wobegon. You never know what might change. Additional funding for this program has been provided by this station and other public television stations, and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.